seconds away from a dream coming true.
This has been her destiny all along.
Without question, Olympic gold medalist in the all-around, Simone Biles. She is, as her mom cannot contain the emotions, and why the heck should you even try? Wow.
She and Simone had so many messages between each other. Make sure you have fun. Stay faithful in yourself. I don't know if today was fun all the time.
It's fun now.
Yeah. 15.933. Amy Gorman and Simone have been together since she was 7. It brings Gorman to tears as well.
I don't think I've ever seen Simone Biles cry.
She wants to win a bunch of them, but this is probably next to the team. This is the most important. Gold and silver medalists, 1-2 for Team USA.
You just saw a video of Olympic gymnast Simone Biles, okay? You saw what she did, and this week in reading, we're going to read a story about her. So this is what you should have had in your Monday folder for reading. And this is going to be a book that we're going to read about her throughout this week. So you'll need it today, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. For your worksheet today, it looks like this. It says day 1 at the top. Now, if you could do me a favor, I forgot to write Monday on the top. So if you put in your best handwriting, go ahead and write Monday there for me, and then write your name right there. Okay? First one's just a question for you. What'd you think of her floor routine? Think it was impressive? Did you think it was super powerful? Do you think you could do it? What do you think? Okay? I want you to just go ahead, pause, take a moment to jot down a few thoughts about what you thought about Simone Biles there. Next, today we're going to do a KWL chart. So what that means is the first section here is going to be what you already know. What do you know about Simone Biles already? Maybe you know a ton. Maybe you've been inspired by her and you've studied her a lot. Write down everything that you know there. Okay, so like for example, one thing I know is that she's a gymnast. Okay, so I could write gymnast there. This section is what you want to know. What do you want to know about Simone Biles? Maybe you want to know something about her family. Maybe you want to know how many siblings she has. Maybe you want to know how old she is, where she was born, where she went to school. Any of those things that you want to know, you can put here. I want at least 3 things that you want to know right here. Okay, so what do you know already? What do you want to know? Maybe the only thing you know about her is that she's a gymnast. That's okay. You could just have that in that column and nothing else. Okay? There's no wrong answers there. Just what do you already know about her? Then what you want to know, think of 3 questions. I gave you a bunch of ideas, but I want 3 there. So anything about her family, about where she went to school, about what she's like as a person. Any of that could be right here. And then this one we're going to leave blank for now. Okay, this column is what did you learn? What did you learn about Simone Biles today? All right? When you're done filling in these first 2, you can go ahead and press pause and we'll get reading. Okay, if you're ready to read with me, you should already be done with the K and the W here. At the end, we'll fill in what we learned. Simone Biles, raising the bar. On our first page here, page 3 at the bottom, you can see we have a table of contents here. It's going to show us just a nonfiction text, so it's going to tell us the different headings that we'll see throughout and the different sections. Journey to Gold. It's on page 4 of your book. You see at the bottom it says 4. Simone Biles stood on the floor of the gymnastics arena and tried to find her focus. It was the 2016 Olympics in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. The stadium was packed with people from around the world watching the petite gymnast. Millions more were watching on television. What do you think that word means, petite? Petite means small. Petite means small, okay? Gymnasts are small to begin with, but Simone Biles is really small, okay? So, like, I am way too big to be a gymnast. I'm over 6 feet tall, so I couldn't be a gymnast. There's just certain things that they do with, like, the bars and stuff that they go around, my feet would hit the floor, okay? But Simone Biles is even smaller than a normal gymnast. Here you can see another picture on page 5. But in that moment, the 19-year-old was concentrating on one thing, winning a gold medal on the vault. It wouldn't be an easy feat. Simone took a deep breath. Then she started sprinting down the runway. She leapt onto the springboard and took flight. She flipped and twisted as she soared through the air. Up here you can see a picture of what the vault is. If you've watched gymnastics before, you might have seen this. It's where they have this long runway and they go sprinting down it, and then there's this platform at the end, and they go and they spring off of it and fly up in the air and do all sorts of flips and stuff. Okay, so this is before the 2016 Olympics. Now we're going to take a step back. Growing up a gymnast. Simone Biles didn't have a typical childhood. She was born on March 14th, 1997 in Columbus, Ohio, the 3rd of 4 children. Maybe you already learned something that you wanted to know. If you want to know when she was born. If you want to know where she was born. If you want to know how many siblings she had. Right? There were 4 kids in her family, so she had 3 siblings. Her mom had difficulty taking care of Simone and her siblings due to personal issues. So when Simone was 3 years old, she and her siblings were sent to live in a foster home. Living far from their mom was difficult. Okay, so they had to go live with somebody else. They couldn't live with their family because her mom couldn't take care of her. Here's a quote from Simone. "I remember how it felt to be passed off and overlooked," she would later write. "Like nobody knew me or wanted to know me." Can you imagine how she felt? She felt like nobody wanted her and she had no family to live with. But there was one thing at the foster home that made Simone forget all about that. A swing set in the backyard. Simone would swing high and do flips in the air. It made her feel like she could fly. After a few months in foster care, Simone was taken by her grandparents into their home in Spring, Texas, near the city of Houston. Okay, so they moved all the way from Ohio, and then they were in foster care, and now they're way down in Texas. Simone had never been in a home with so many toys before. She would swing from the bunk beds, flip on the couch, and jump on the trampoline in the backyard. A few years later, Simone's grandparents officially adopted her. Okay, so she moved back in with family. She moved with her grandparents, and her grandparents were taking care of her. See another picture of her in one of her gymnastics meets? Turn the page. Simone would have never gotten into gymnastics if not for a bit of luck. When she was 6, her school field trip to a ranch, that's like where horses are, got canceled because of high temperatures. Instead, her class visited a gymnastics center in Houston. It was the first time Simone had ever seen gymnastics before, but she started copying the moves that the older kids at the center were doing. Performing the cartwheels and tumbles came easily to her. One of the coaches at the gym saw Simone and couldn't believe her eyes. This little girl was a natural. She had to sign Simone up for lessons at the gymnastics center right away. Simone soon started training with a coach named Amy Borman. They became so close, they were like family. Most world champion gymnasts start training when they're just 3 years old. That would mean you guys, you're 5 years too late. Right? Most gymnastics start when they're just 3. At 6, Simone was already behind schedule, but she made up for it with her raw talent and work ethic. Day after day, she practiced with Amy. She worked on the vault, the balance beam, the uneven bars, and the floor. Maybe some of you have taken gymnastics classes before. When Simone was 14, she began competing at the junior elite level against the best gymnasts in her age group from around the nation. In her bedroom, she imagined herself one day standing on the podium at the Olympics with a gold medal around her neck. And so she's got a dream, right? She wants to be in the Olympics. Bouncing back. Simone stood on the mat, looking up at the scoreboard. It was the 2011 Junior National Championships. Okay, Simone's like 14 now, okay? So we kind of jumped forward a couple years. But it wasn't going as planned. During the vault, Simone had launched off with too much force and stumbled on her landing. Now she needed a miracle. Only the top 13 finishers would make the junior national team. Simone waited nervously for her name to appear as those top finishers lit up on the scoreboard. Then came number 13, the last gymnast to make the cut. Simone held her breath. The scoreboard read, number 13, Madison Desch. Simone was number 14. She had missed the team by 1 spot. Simone cheered for the other gymnasts, but inside, tears were bubbling up. She felt like she had let everyone down, her coach, her grandparents, and most of all, herself. Simone thought about giving up, but instead, she decided to train harder than ever. She practiced the vault over and over again. After practice, she would be exhausted, sore, and bruised from falling, but she never quit. She worked until she perfected the landing. Looking back, Simone called her defeat at the Junior Nationals the most important moment of her career. I thought my failure at the 2011 Nationals was an ending, she would later write, but it really was a beginning. This is the last page we'll read for today. That summer, Simone had to make one of the most difficult decisions of her life. She was about to begin high school, but there was no way she could go to high school while also training to become an Olympic gymnast. Most elite gymnasts are homeschooled so they can spend more time on gymnastics. Being homeschooled would mean missing out on the typical high school activities like going to prom and homecoming. Simone couldn't make her mind up about what to do. Every night at the dinner table, she'd debate the topic with her grandparents. Sometimes she would become so frustrated that she would start crying. Then, one night, her grandfather said something that pushed Simone to make her decision. He told her that she had a gift, one she shouldn't waste. The next day, she made an announcement, "I'm going to try homeschool." Having made that difficult decision, Simone trained like it was a full-time job. 35 hours every week, at least. She pushed herself through bumps and bruises, but she always kept a big smile on her face and a positive attitude. Before long, she was pulling off some of the toughest moves in the sport. 35 hours every week, that's like 5 hours a day, at least. Okay, so she's spending a ton of time training to make sure that she can be, a successful gymnast. While she's doing this, she's also doing all of her work homeschooled, okay, by herself, working with teachers, kind of like virtual education, like what you guys are doing now. But she was working really hard to make sure, one, she was still getting her education, and two, she was training a ton to be a gymnast. That's where we're going to stop for today. If you're curious and you want to keep reading, go ahead. This is where we're going to start on page 14 tomorrow. But if you want to reread any or read ahead, no problem. We'll start here tomorrow. Let's look at our chart. What have we learned so far? You already did what you know, what you want to know. What about what you learned? Maybe you had an answer of one of the things to one of your questions here, and you could write that here. One of the things that you might want to write is that Simone was raised by her grandparents. You might write, Simone trained 35 hours a week. Okay, I want you to have at least 3 things there. So if you used my first 2, make sure you have 1 more here. If you didn't, if you used your own here, just make sure you got 3 total, and then you'll be good to go. All right? We'll pick it up back with Simone tomorrow.